Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Apartment Department, the podcast for multifamily marketers by multifamily marketers. I'm your co-host, Ann Baum, VP of Marketing at Town Properties, and I have Chris Johnson, Marketing Leader at Irwin R. Rose, a firm in Dallas. And we're very, very excited to have our friend and past AIM presenter, Chris. Sarah and I presented at AIM in 2024, which makes this even more special. But today we have Sarah Wieman, who's the regional manager for Reach, which is Yardy's marketing agency, and she is the regional manager in the Northeast. And we wanted to have Sarah on for a couple of reasons. One, because this is basically a reunion tour for us. We had such a great time presenting about aligning marketing and operations through KPIs at AIM that we knew the three of us had to be together again. And what we're excited about is that Sarah, again, works for Reach, which is Yardy's marketing agency. And so she is basically on the forefront of digital trends because she works with a lot of different clients from a needs standpoint, from a size standpoint. And really, because we're coming toward the end of the year, we wanted to take this opportunity to talk all about marketing trends. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Hi guys, happy Sunday. It's so good to see you both. That's what I'm most excited about.
I know
And of
this is
course,
so
talking about trends.
this is so fun. It brought back so many memories. We realized that we do not, the three of us, talk enough. So, Chris, I know you wanted to go ahead and really dive into it with Sarah. So why don't you kick us off?
Sarah, good to have you. Good to see you. Wanted to talk about video and where you see the trends for video going. I know you have a lot of clients. I'm sure video is a hot topic. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's next for 2025?
It's a great question. We do have a lot of clients asking more and more about how videos work and how they integrate into websites. And I think it's becoming definitely a hot button topic as we go into 2025. My biggest thing is too that I hear from clients is like, if you build a video or put one into a website, how do you get the data from it? And I think that's a really important thing that people ask. And I think that ties back to who you host the videos with, making sure that my clients are hosting videos that embed into our websites in a manner that they are able to see the success of those videos, because most platforms, YouTube, Vimeo, and a few other sites that allow you to host those videos do have robust reporting in the background. So I always think whenever someone's creating a video, it's not just about the beauty of the content, but it's about what you can pull to learn more about like your customers that are visiting your sites at that time. So yeah, I think 2025 will be a year of content creation as we continue to realize content is king. And I think videos are definitely at the forefront of that.
Have you seen or heard what videos are doing best? Are the property videos, are they fun, hard cut, TikTok style videos, even if you're not using TikTok? Are people leaning into the trends, or are we still doing traditional videos with the property and vacants?
I think it's definitely a bit of both. Hero videos that you might want to put on the homepage of your website. I know lots and lots of people are still trending towards the lifestyle that a property offers, what's around it, not just what you have when you live there, but the amenities, and then maybe local restaurants, local hiking paths, anything fun that's close to those properties that people can do. And then I do think that there is a trend for those shorts, those fun videos. And I personally believe that they're also a way to allow your leasing teams to be introduced to people that will potentially be living there, give them a little bit of opportunity for letting their personality shine. But website videos are definitely more lifestyle-y that I think are proving to be more successful. But when you ask more about various forms of content, we are seeing a trend that people want to see what the units actually look like. And from a photography standpoint, in-unit photos are performing better than, say, the beautiful pictures of your property's front door or the amenities. So something I've learned through clients, listening to them, and then also just doing my due diligence and reading is when you have like ILS listings or your photo galleries page, to start with the in-unit photos and not your property photos. So I thought that was really interesting.
Wow, that's a new one for me. So like so instead of going like outside in, you go inside out and you start at your unit and then go to the property because people want to see where they're going to live and how the space works, right?
Yeah. I have a really neat client. They're out of Buffalo, New York, and They have smaller properties, so sub 50 units, but they've pulled out all the bells and whistles recently to revamp their websites with us. And they've put a lot of money into content creation. And what makes their properties super unique is they're old converted warehouses or historic buildings in the greater Buffalo area. So no two floor plans are the same. And they actually went and photographed every unit in all their buildings and are putting all the unit photos on their website. And I think that's so neat. You hardly hear of companies doing that, but they recognize how special each unit is. And they realize that when their customers come in and see the uniqueness, that's the selling feature for those units. So it's super trendy. Yeah.
I'm doing it I'm doing it with my vacants. I'm filming a vacant of each floor plan. And so I have video for all of them. So it's not just the pretty pictures, but people can actually see the unit. And I'm doing this little thing too, where I'm putting the floor plan on it. So it's almost like a Matterport, but it's a live video. So it kind of moves, the dot moves as you move through the floor plan. So it's similar to what the company's doing in Buffalo. I'm not doing it for all the units, but I'm doing it for the ones that we need to move, especially at our small properties where we don't have models, because that's a big one. People want to see it. And if you don't have a model or you don't have a vacant that's ready, they can't see anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think every client is a little bit different. So like if you have properties that have standard floor plans or standard floor plan stacks, you could do like one of each stack. But in their case, for example, every single unit is different. So it's like that works for them. And there's definitely ways to make it affordable, but also efficient for every type property. Like if you have a property above 1,000 units, you don't want to photograph 1,000 units, but how can you make it manageable that you do get that content for each unit type and get it published so that people can imagine what life would be like living in one of the units? So I love what you're doing too.
You say content is king. Let's talk about that a little bit. We've been talking about content for as long as I can remember as a marketer, but the content has changed and the places we put it have changed. What's up with content these days? What should we be focusing in on? Does social still matter? Do people care? Should we be putting blogs back up? What's the deal, Sarah?
Well, blogs have made a comeback like no other. Like I get asked more questions about blogs from clients than I ever imagined. And when I was on the client side, blogs were just like an afterthought for me. I felt like the trend died, but they are back. And I think they're here to stay, to be honest with you, especially from an SEO perspective. So blogs totally at the forefront. And I think people are looking for ways to create blogs that are meaningful and resonate with both prospects and residents alike, but that they can do it in an efficient manner. So like we have our Marketing IQ dashboard. Now it has a Genius component that helps support blog writing. It's super cool, seamless to use. And I think our clients are really appreciating the availability to do something like that. When I say content is king though, I feel like prospects in particular now when they're on the apartment hunt, younger demographics are coming up. We all know how kids love their media. They love to see things. They want everything in the palm of their hand immediately. No fluff, no frills. Get them to the unit that they want and move in. So anything that you can enhance that experience, putting photos at the unit level. So when someone gets there, they actually have a real representation of what that unit might look like or get the feel of it, is where content is king. And then I think there's this shift where for years, photography for multifamily properties was so expensive, and there's finally companies coming to market like LCP Media where you can get these wonderful packages of video, photography, walkthrough tour videos, and it's not breaking the bank like it used to. And I believe that now people are finally starting to see the value in investing in that content. And another great example is content's in the eye of the beholder, right? So sometimes you run into firms where CEOs and COOs and senior leadership love photos, but the photos are now 15 years old, and you start to tell that they don't render the same caliber anymore. And they might love those photos, but you can recreate a photo, right? And get the high quality that we need. So quality content is also very trendy, I believe, as well. High quality in the palm of your hand, get it in front of the consumer faster. Help get their decision-making process to a quicker place instead of how it used to be drawn out a little bit longer.
Does Reach have tools to help you track all this as you're putting this content out to see what's working and what isn't, or what posts are resonating, what isn't?
We definitely, I mean, with our strategic partnership like ours, we're looking at everything, especially from the websites of how things are performing, how the websites are loading. Is the content the proper size? Is it mobile friendly? So we're always looking at that. Our Marketing IQ Genius product too is also tracking all the sources where the prospects come from, aggregating those KPIs. So we're definitely always looking at the data. Again, when you get to like a video hosting site, we don't have color into that back end, but our clients do, and they'll bring information to us. That's the part of the strategic partnership, is we're always sharing information and receiving information from our clients to figure out how we can better serve our product offering to the customers that we support. So yeah, I think we're all always looking at it, and I think we do have the tools in place to do it. The other part that's been coming up too about monitoring like your websites or your content, of course, is accessibility. And that's something I think whenever you go into a partnership with a company, is for websites in particular, is making sure that the content is accessible to all. So making sure the alt tags are there and so that the readers from Google or the websites can be leveraged by people who have accessibility needs.
That's awesome. I love Marketing IQ. I used it a couple years ago when it was in its infancy, and I know it's grown. What a cool product for those that don't. So
Cool.
it tracks, it literally tracks everything. It tracks your spend. It
Yep.
tells you what's working, what isn't. Everything is kind of tied together, especially if you're a Yardi customer and kind of bringing it all in together. So it's a really neat product. Sarah, maybe you want to talk about some of the things that have changed over the last couple of years with it, so listeners can understand like what data is actually out there and how we can use it to be a revenue generator versus an expense center. And I talk about that a lot. Yeah.
It's our goal as three of us. So we are revenue centers as marketers. We're always fighting the good fight. Yeah. So I think any tool that anyone can leverage, Marketing IQ is ours. I think there's a few more out there that some might have as well. I know, Anne, you've created dashboards for yourself, and I hope that as you share dashboards with your providers too, that they take that feedback. I felt like as a client, I needed something like Marketing IQ, and poof, it appeared. So I always felt like Reach and Yardi were taking care of people, but we've added so many features. Some of my favorites are that we connected back to G4. So all like SEO reporting is at our clients' fingertips, and it's set up so beautifully to be digestible. I don't know for you guys or our listeners today if you've ever gone into the back end of Google, but you could spend 8 hours just trying to find what you're looking for. And I think the way we've pulled in the data really helps simplify that process for our customers. And then I'll say one of my favorite features is we have an alerts dashboard, so you can set metrics for how you want your properties to perform, like the availability, your cost per lease. You can set these KPIs, and if a property isn't meeting those standards, you as a marketer get an alert for it, allowing you to be proactive instead of reactive. And the other feature that I think a lot of clients are benefiting from is we have a tracker now where you can track all of the conversion features that we offer on our websites for each website, which takes away a Word document. And it sounds like it was just a simple tool to put into play, but I think that's going to be a powerful game changer for many folks, because it is hard to track. Do I have nudge marketing on? Do I have a floor plan assistant? Is the front desk widget there? Do I have a chat widget, just to be able to go in and see what is turned on for every specific property? And then you can also start to materialize, oh, wow, I have a front desk widget on for half of my portfolio, and those properties are performing exponentially better than this other portion of my portfolio. Maybe I'll try turning this on for them and see how it works. So you really get an opportunity to like compare and contrast and understand how all these features come together. So
That's so powerful. How much time, Ann, do we waste just trying to get the data? And here you go. You have a product that just puts it in your fingertips, and you don't have to think about it. I mean, you could actually just do the analysis and not have to go like pull the reporting or go figure it out for each of the properties.
I love being a VLOOKUP expert, though.
oh yeah, right?
It's like my only job is like VLOOKUP and like standardizing data so it matches up together.
I used to like make these Excel sheets, and I think of myself as proficient, but I would not say that I'm an expert at writing formulas. And I used to send it to a gentleman that worked with me and be like, fix all the things that I didn't do right, and then send it back and show me how to use this. Pretty sure I would take like half of his day when I would send those over, but teamwork makes the dream work. I think too, what's becoming really interesting as marketing's position in our industry shifts. Like we're joking here a little bit about marketing being a revenue center, but I think more and more people are starting to feel that way and understand that the money you put into marketing exponentially brings more into your properties. Like we always used to joke, like, I could turn your website off, then go lease an apartment. Like, how would you do it?
Right.
So I think more stakeholders are starting to ask questions about the data, and having a tool like Marketing IQ or a dashboard where you can easily aggregate information that might be pertinent to them is really important as well. So what I find as a marketer to be the most pivotal KPIs, my C-suite or leadership may not. And finding out what means something to them and being able to give them that data quickly is very important in order to push the conversations forward of like, what do we do next from a marketing standpoint?
What KPIs do you think are marketers kind of holding dear right now, in terms of measuring success, but then also being able to tell the story up to the C-suite?
I mean, I think cost per lease, we've talked about it for years, but I think that's one that resonates with both sides of the business model, because if a marketer comes and says, hey, we're spending all this money on this source, but the average cost per lease is 6 times the average month's rent, then that person in the leadership role is understanding, okay, it takes us this much time now to recuperate that money into our revenue stream. I think, of course, NOI, like NOI is a great KPI that bridges the gap. But marketers in particular, I feel like there's still a fine line between looking at and I'm going to separate these a little, but like results driven KPIs, like cost per lease, cost per lead, versus looking at the raw numbers of like, how many leads did I get? How many tours did I get? Because I feel like to talk to the operating teams or on-site teams, those are the numbers that that mean something to them. But marketers still tend to go back and be like, oh, this source only drove like 6 leads. It's not working, I think, is still driving some decision making. But were those 6 leads ones that converted into tours, and did all 6 of them convert into move-ins? Because if that's the case, then that's a very good source for you versus a source that sends you like 250 leads and you only got 2 tours from it and 1 move-in. That source is actually the one that's not performing for you. So I think you have to look at the full picture, but I think there's definitely starting to be very distinct KPIs that are speaking to various pockets of each firm.
Yep. I think you're right. And obviously the 3 of us spoke about that earlier this year. And I mean, internally, I'm continuing to see we're continuing to become more sophisticated on how we kind of present data to each faction. It seems like it's never ending. It's which is cool. It's neat. Yeah. It's a neat process to be going through. I love marketing.
I have a question for you both of like, what trends are you hearing from like your folks that are boots on the ground? Like, do you receive a lot of ideas from your operating teams, and what are some of the things that they're bringing up to you to consider?
For me, it's really continuing in on the video content. Like people just want to see stuff. And I'm fortunate, a couple of regionals that I work with have worked at big companies. And so we take some of the things that they've done in the past and all of our experiences together to kind of create the program. We're really focusing in on social and how to be hyper local with it, so that each property really is getting their own content. And so I'm lucky at this company, I have a large team and we can do so. But the content, the engagement since we've done that has gone skyrocketed compared to what was going on when we were paying a third party to do it, because they just don't have the knowledge that we have. And I think the other thing is that I'm lucky to work with a team that's open to talking about what's working and what isn't. And as we spoke about at AIM, as much as I love to spend money as a marketer, if our teams aren't closing, then there's no reason to spend more money because they're not closing the traffic that they're already getting. We need to figure out that problem first. And we've had that conversation a couple of times. And guess what? Through the deep dive, we did find maybe there was an issue here or there that we could correct. And then it made sense to go turn on more marketing dollars because we corrected the issue. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really focused on right now is getting my ear to the ground and trying to be different than everybody else out there. couple of my markets are super concession happy right now. I mean, we have some of our competitors doing 3 months free in some of our markets in Texas, which is some of the largest concessions I've ever seen. So that's kind of what we're competing with in this market.
I think we're kind of similar in terms of having conversations at the individual property level about operational KPIs. So previously, and we still do, we have those conversations on a monthly basis with like the regional vice president, but we're also now starting to have those conversations with site teams. Like if they're coming to us and saying we need traffic at this particular site, we're now going back and saying like, okay, let's look at this whole picture. And I think we're also doing a better job of kind of auditing individual properties, meaning what is the curb appeal? Like almost like we've never seen the property before and kind of showing up and like, is this presenting consistently? Like what are prospects actually seeing? What experience are they having? And I think before we were looking at that data maybe like portfolio wide, but now we're starting to look at our properties more as like individual products. We were always doing that from a marketing mix standpoint, but now it's again holistically, how is this property presenting and what are the opportunities for the individual property? Is the office messy when you go in? We had something recently where an area manager and we were comparing a comp to one of our properties, and when you went into the comp, it immediately stood out how beautiful like the interior design was and the tile and just very much like first impression. And so we were able to use that, and she kind of drove forward then like a color refresh, and she's redoing the office and ripped out carpet that was there and put new carpet in. And so that's, I don't know, like I said, that's really what we're focused on, is making our individual properties, making sure that they're standing out properly.
It's so funny you say that. We're doing that too with our models. Like some of our models need to be refreshed because they're not as modern as they were. And so yeah, we're just trying to spruce it up. I would say too, the big buzzword around our company, and I know it's for you too, is back to the basics.
Yep.
So it is about the curb appeal. It is about actually talking to our prospects. We have all this technology. People are used to staring at their screens. And we're really getting back to everybody who walks in the office, get off your screen, go take a walk with them, actually sell them, take the tour. You can put all the stuff into the computer later. I mean, of course, you want them to get a guest card and all those things. I'm not saying that, but you don't just sit there and be an order taker. Like you need to engage. You need to be ready to take these tours. The property needs to look good. And so we're really focusing on back to the basics on how you lease, along with curb appeal. And I think that's so important these days when you have all the competition. How does your property look? Is the trash cleaned up? Is the unit looking good? When you walk into the model, are the lights on, fans running? Those sound like small things, but if you're touring and you're a prospect, those are big items. Yeah. And we're toying with some really fun ideas. One of my marketing team members came up to me the other day, and we're talking about this summer how we're gonna, do some fun things at the pool and maybe have like a popsicle phone or I don't know, something like that, where we'll deliver it on, Saturdays or whatever, and just try to bring back some fun to what we're doing and kind of bring it back to the basics, to what we were doing back in the past when we didn't have all this technology. And just try to be different, but also effective in what we're doing to be different.
Yeah, all of this is rooted in fundamentals. And I think it's kind of like a cyclical thing where we had to, real estate, multifamily felt like they were behind from a technology standpoint. So then it got stacked on, and now people are like, okay, cool, we're good from technology. So now like, let's go back to these operational processes and ensuring. And it's amazing because everything that you're talking about can be measured through KPIs. Like if your tour to app conversion rate is low, then that tells me that some of those things aren't happening, right? And especially as we're talking about, we're focusing so much now on content and allowing prospects to research a property. So if they're deciding to come in for a tour, like you have them. I mean, they're at least halfway there with you because there is so much information available already. And so in theory, the tour to app ratio should be higher. And so again, I think it's cool that now we can kind of measure, are these things happening or not, just through simple KPIs.
I think it's neat. It's cool too that you guys are talking about like the refreshes on curb appeal or like taking a closer look at what your property might need. I try really hard when I meet with clients to go tour their communities. One, to help me continue to learn about what sites are doing, and B, because I like miss it. Like I really miss going on site and hanging out with teams. But I toured a client of mine's property in New York. Now, granted, this is a very, very class A, like triple class A, high end luxury, but the amenities were spectacular. And some of the things that I was thinking about as I walked through there was these amenities are actually great opportunities for your current residents to sell the life to their friends because they were amenities that where they had camaraderie. Like they brought their friends in. The gyms were spectacular. There was a bowling alley and a game room. And like the manager that was touring us was saying how like they reserve it, they have parties there. And I'm like, that is a great way for people to see what life would be like. And then they probably or potentially could come like look and then live there themselves. So it's like, how can you also leverage that to make your residents that live there a part of the story?
I think that's a very good point. Like we've actually started looking at a KPI of if a percentage of leases are coming from referrals, then that means that we are providing a good customer experience. And so I think that that's very interesting. Now, obviously, we have to give means and motivation for people to want to refer, besides just a great experience, right?
Right.
We've actually started looking at that as a KPI, is like, then if we're getting a percentage of a certain percentage of leases from referrals, then that indicates that we're providing a good customer experience. And I think when you talk about that too, I would say that a trend we're probably going to start seeing is more of a focus on retention, which
I mean, it's cheaper to keep someone than to lose them. We all know that. And I think where this conversation has gone is so valuable because I personally too, like I understand the importance of a customer experience. And I think a lot of companies are starting to talk about it, but then you also get this feedback of like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? How do you define like that person you might hire in your firm to drive the customer experience? And are they a part of marketing or are they a part of operations or are they both? And I think for marketers, we see it as like, if you have someone there that's on your team or you're thinking about it or you're talking with your regionals about the experience and how to enhance it, defining what the experience means for your properties in your portfolio. Like, what is the town experience? Is it the same at every property? If not, how do we make it cohesive through the portfolio?
Yep. No, I think you're right. And I think it's interesting because a lot of those elements already exist, right? Like policies, procedures, operational processes in terms of baseline experience. Maintenance should get back to you in X amount of time, etc. And then I do think that there's an element that gets layered in for individual properties. Like this is baseline what everyone can expect. And then also at this particular property, because of its uniqueness, these are added in features that prospects and residents can expect. So,
And I feel like defining the program for like, if I was still on the client side of the industry, I think at this point I would create like a document that defined what the experience should be for the company that I worked for. And then maybe, making it beautiful and somewhere on all property websites, adding that as like a custom page, A, to help with SEO, but B, for when prospects get there, that they can read that like pledge or that honor that you want to provide them with X, Y, and Z at those properties. I think helps define like what it means to be a resident, what it means to be a part of the community. And then they know it builds trust, right? Like renting an apartment is what, 2/3 or something of your income or a third of your income every month. So you want it to feel comfortable.
yep. And I think something like that is an accountability factor too. I mean, if you're straight putting in writing, this is what people can expect, like that's good. It's upfront. It's
right?
Yeah. Like, so I think you're on the right track. I mean, I think that's a huge, Chris and I have talked a lot about, and that's a huge conversation right now, is just brand, customer experience. We're kind of starting our own project right now around that. And I mean, I think it's going to be one of the next big things for sure.
Yeah, and if we're always chasing the hotel industry, like we all know what it means to stay at a Hilton. We all know what it means to stay at Marriott. It doesn't matter the name of the actual hotel. And I don't think I don't think multifamily will ever get to a point where we lose this individual branding. I've had some debatable conversations with people about that. Like, should we go to single stacked websites like a hotel experience? I don't think that's the case because I think if you fully go that way, you lose that local opportunity. And remember, these are people's homes. They live there 365 days a year. They're not there for a few nights. They do want to understand what that localized community is. So I think there could be like a hybrid model down the road, but
Yeah.
being able to define that experience so that, say, I'm living at a town property and I want to move and I find another town property, I at least have a baseline of what life would be like.
Yeah.
And finally bringing like a sprinkle of the qualities that your companies offer, not just to like you guys as employees, but the goals that they have for their residents, they start to understand. And you kind of become like that Marriott or that Hilton, but you still have a local brand presence that makes the difference.
Yeah, I think you're right. I personally like that kind of property management company is the base brand, and then layered on top of that is unique branding for each of the properties. That model makes sense to me.
I've seen a lot of companies too recently, and I did it a little as a client, but I think it's becoming more prevalent is to have collections of properties. So you build, say you're about ground up builder, you're building something, you build 5 properties within like a 30-minute drive radius of each other. They become like a collection. It's again similar to the hotels. Like Marriott has, their luxury brand. They have Ritz-Carlton, they have Marriott Bonvoy. So like maybe that's another direction that marketing will eventually go is you start to build either collections or like neighborhoods of properties. And that's another way to cross market for one, but also to build a consistent brand presence for that grouping.
I think for us, we just go back to the basics and we take care of our residents. If you're taking care of them when they have a maintenance request or they need something and you're responding, you're going to have a much better retention rate. Your properties are going to look better. People want to live there. They care about living there. And so when you mirror that with a good strong marketing program, then you're really on top of it because you're not actually selling something. It just is what it is, right? You are better than your competitors. And I've worked at a lot of smaller companies. And so how do we compete with Greystar and Willowbridge and all the, Cushman Wakefield, all those big companies out there that they have bigger budgets, right? It is what it is. And they can negotiate better pricing. But at the end of the day, if you're back to the basics and you take care of your residents and you have a strong marketing program, you can really make a difference out there. And people will know that you are different and they want to come live at your properties.
Right. I think and again, taking this conversation like back to the beginning of like us talking about content and getting into some of those like trends that we really are seeing emerging is also finding that balance. And I think it's really important too. And I maybe turn this to you guys a little bit more, but we can go get all the beautiful content that we want. We can virtually stage things. We can have, Photoshop edit something or smooth out a wall that might be wrinkled. But I also think there's this level that we can't lose of authenticity and what actually is there. So you have to walk that fine line, right? Like you can't oversell the experience if you can't deliver on that oversale. You can't over beautify your property if it doesn't actually look like that. So how do you guys keep like an authentic tone to your branding when you're thinking of all these trends that are being thrown at you for your companies in particular?
I mean, I think for us, it's about going and visiting properties more to make sure, again, so I've told this story before, but we've guiltily made properties look better or worse than they should from a website right? There's this like weird like website, like I built a website and it has to be like this most beautiful thing. But it actually has to represent the property well. And so I think us just being in tune with our properties and what they are actually delivering and what they look like, because every property has a purpose. It's its own product. It has its own unique audience. All the properties don't have to look the same. So that's how we've started to deal with it, is just being better about understanding the individual products.
I'm the same way. We treat each property individually. I'll give you kind of a thing for me. I don't like to use luxury. I think it's overused in our industry. So I try to
Number one search term.
That's interesting.
but now I can be different because I can use other search terms and focus in on other things because some of my properties aren't luxury. They aren't. They're just good properties to live at that fits a market. And so I use that one because that and resort style pool, I think, is another one that just keeps popping up. And technically you could probably say every pool is resort style because it's built like a hotel, but I try to get away from the terms that everybody is using. I try to be a little bit different, especially as we're going through our website recreation process. What do we really want to sell? I mean, what do people actually care about when they come to these properties? Most of the time right now, as you would expect, it's location and it's price. Hence why we're putting the price so prominently on the homepage so people can self-select right away and know where they're at. But that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get back. Really, I'm trying to be totally different than what the rest of the industry is doing. I'm trying to use different terms. I'm trying to figure out who's actually living at the properties and going from there. But I'm also doing a lot of fun stuff like video FAQs, and we're doing TikTok type videos just for the web page. We're not going to throw it on TikTok because I really haven't figured out that strategy yet, how you make it look great. You can only show a kitchen so many times, right? Or a bedroom. I am doing that in social too. I'm getting away from showing inside of the units. Like, the pictures aren't sexy. Like, let's go talk about what's 5 minutes away at some cool festival that's going on inside Dallas versus showing a bedroom, which everybody looks the same. I also don't do closets on my website unless they're extraordinary. A closet is a closet. I don't know. I try to look at it that way. Like, what do people actually care about, right? Like,
From getting onto your webpage and being a brand new prospect, understanding what you're actually going to be living in and seeing those interior photos is important because someone needs to imagine life there. But I think that when you come to a social strategy, like social in my brain is like a way to give your brand a voice. And it's like, how do you want that voice to be spelled out? Social, I think, gives a lot more of the opportunity for like humanistic qualities at a property. And so like showcasing, like you're talking about the festivals, or that you might have a local partnership with a coffee shop that like residents get $1 off their coffees once a month, or that you have a resident appreciation day and your property closes the office and does like a huge event on site and you celebrate that. And in real time, you're able to show people what they're doing and how they're living. I feel like residents love to be social. So creating moments on sites that are properties are like Instagrammable. I remember in my client days, we used to run internal social media contests and we'd give out prizes like custom step-in repeats, a neon light for your lobby, like a place where someone might want to take a picture out in a park, and we post little signs that say, take a picture and tag us to potentially win like a gift card or $25 credit or something. So like the engagement piece is really important in social, but I think social is that way to make your properties the life come to like reality of what it really means to live there, versus your website, which is what, to sell people the actual product. And I think now more so as the younger generations are coming up, they also are turning to social and reviewing them to be like, well, I have fun living here. Is it a place where, oh, I'm a med student? Is it going to be quiet? Is that important to me? What do I expect? That social gets to spell that for you.
agree. We're doing this thing right now, the Give Thanks campaign, and we're asking our teams to video themselves and what they get thanks for, and we're putting them into 60-second or 30-second fun video spin-offs, and we're putting them on LinkedIn. And we didn't have any LinkedIn content until the beginning of this month, and we're like blowing up in engagement from going from zero to like stuff, because people can see who our employees are and what they're real people, and they are giving thanks for a whole litany of items. And so I think I'm just trying to have fun and realize like we don't have to be so serious all the time with all of this content. We can actually have some fun. We can have a voice. Social media is a place to do it. And then how do we encompass that and bring our brand and actually have it live and living? And you're so big on brand, and that for us, that's how we're putting it alive. We have our average tenure at my company is 10 years, which is insane.
Yeah.
If you think about like our industry and the turnover. So we're trying to bring that to life. Like, why do people love working here? Why do people love staying with us? Our retention rate's like 70%. Why is that? And so we're trying to put that into our marketing.
It's I love that you're doing that. I also think too, as we start to like redefine what some of the roles mean for on-site teams, right? We've talked about technology today and how technology is supposed to, from a marketing standpoint, like a marketing IQ product, help make our lives easier in aggregating things. We have technologies out there that are supposed to make the on-site teams lives easier in managing their workflows or managing the leasing process, or even, one day we could execute leases where your teams don't have to physically scan things in or run a check, or like the systems are starting to talk together more and more. So you can start the application process, you can put in your ID, your verification. We're starting to see that those, processes that used to lag time are getting faster and faster. So like, what is the option then for your on-site teams moving forward? Like, what does their role mean and how do you change that? And, a leasing agent's role is what we would consider, I think, entry level. And a lot of times they're, young folks. Some people I've met, it's their first job, like their first grown-up job, and they're way younger than me, and they're so tech savvy on these social platforms. Like, how do you leverage that knowledge? And like, I think for years we've sort of denied wanting to embrace that skill set, but more companies I talk to are like, oh, we hired this leasing agent. They're so savvy with social. We're going to let them run the show. And I'm like, that is great because you're also giving them something that they like to do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Sarah, I have a question. Are you seeing companies kind of employ a strategy of property level marketing, but also like city or regional level marketing so that maybe you're finding some efficiencies? You talked before about like collections of properties, for example. Are you seeing any shifts in how companies are marketing and like where they're driving people to try and be as efficient as possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We do get asked more and more when we're presenting like our website solution about how sister pages work. I don't like calling them sister pages. So like I like to call them like collections or clusters.
Yep.
So I think more and more companies are starting to ask those questions of like, how can I cross market? I do know that there is a few firms I've spoken to that might own 6 or 7 properties within like a 1 square mile. Centralizing their websites to like a CLO is becoming, I think, more trendy. I have a client that they own like all of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Like literally every apartment building is theirs. And for a long time, they've been able to like CLO also their outbound marketing, which I think is fascinating. Like kudos to them for, being savvy about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, more and more, I think that we're talking about like, how do we, people are asking and expressing that they're going to create like little sub brands where they cross market. Like maybe one of the properties goes on apartments.com, one goes on Zillow, one has no ILS, and you sort of like centralize that marketing strategy to save money. Maybe that property that's not on any of the services, maybe that's the property where you budget like content and social strategy, like being savvy with where you put your dollars. I still think though, if you're going to have individual property websites, I think every website needs its own SEO because you still want them to stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Like, they say page 2 of Google is where websites go to die. Like you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But I definitely think people are starting to, the trend of centralization is still talked about, and it's still talked about from an operating standpoint and a marketing standpoint. And I think, again, the cross marketing is becoming more popular. So I'll give another example. When I was in my very first firm with multifamily, we were centrally in Philadelphia. We had a very interesting portfolio. We managed a lot of condos, and we had a few standalone apartment buildings. And we're close to Penn, and Penn University has like a huge international tie for grad students and med students. So like once or twice a year, we would actually run campaigns that encompass the entire portfolio just to get people to like come into our doors.
Yeah.
But the unique part about this business model is it's an old school real estate brokerage, but they centralized the entire operation. So all of the leasing staff sat in one office for the whole city. And I was like, looking back, I was like, holy smokes, this is what people are trying to achieve. And this gentleman who's a mentor of mine achieved it 35 years ago with how he set this up. And it's like, how did he do that? He made, and I think more so, he did it to create efficiencies.
Yeah. Which, yeah, is the whole pivot around Central Z, right? Like that is the essence of, that's very cool. That was a strategy. I used to work at a marketing agency and we specialized in franchise marketing. And that was a tactic that we used, is that we would have what we called metro pages. And so franchisees within one metro were located on one landing page. And then we would have pay-per-click campaigns that drove to that metro page instead of the individual franchise pages. And because ultimately we're like, well, we're basically just going to be bidding on the same key,
Right.
Denver, whatever. And so we were like, well, let's be more efficient with the spend. Yeah, exactly. And so I think you're right from an SEO standpoint. That's interesting. It's like we're talking about each of the properties is unique, but there might be opportunity from some. I've never thought about, I like that what you said about the ILS, like one property here, one property there. So that might be a trend, maybe not next year, but maybe the year after, that we'll start to hear people talk more and more about.
I hope my ILS friends weren't mad at me for suggesting that, but
it's actually, I mean, we have to try things, because here's the thing. It's like, we talk a lot about strategies, and it's, and sometimes people are like, we don't want to talk about things because then you're like giving away your secrets. And it's like, but ultimately not every strategy works for all property management companies are so different. Our audiences are different. Our assets are different. Our promises to everything is so different that ultimately all we can do is kind of have a collective conversation with each other and then go back and decide what actually works. So I don't know.
Two properties that shared a driveway. One was like a brick Southern traditional style apartment building, older vintage. The other looked like something that you'd find maybe up at the beach. It had like the vinyl siding and like the latticed worked patios and stuff. And they literally shared a driveway, and they had two totally different demographics.
Yeah.
Completely different demographics. And so that would be a great opportunity there to say like, okay, maybe one of them, let me put that one that drives more of like the family oriented folks on apartments.com. Maybe the other one is a younger, trendier demographic, and you put it on apartment list, because we know apartment list tends to attract like a younger group to their site. See how it works, right? Like, what's the worst case that happens? You end up adding a source or taking one away. Like,
but at least you're being different, right? Like that's Chris's thing. At least you're being different, and you're trying. And Sarah, is there anything else we should be thinking about as marketers? Is there anything else that you're like, firms must be doing?
I mean, I think just keeping up with certain standards that we have in the industry, like making your website so beautiful and having all the bells and the whistles is great. Like, the little fly-ins or the pop-ups, but always making sure that they're loading quickly. Sometimes it's from the creative side, we want to see all that fancy stuff, but from like just a side of having the website be effective and efficient, you might not need everything to be, optimal on Google, or to keep up with just those standards of like fast load speed, progressive web apps, making sure your site architecture or whoever you're using is keeping up with like the algorithm changes with Google every year. I've been asked recently a lot about accessibility on sites. More so than I thought I would hear. I don't know if there's a shift coming or if people are starting to hear sprinkles of, say, like them cracking down. But any new website you put out, make sure it's accessible and accommodatable for people. And also, I think it's really important, as you build programs that might be more localized to your on-site operating teams, making sure that they're trained for fair housing from a marketing standpoint. I know that there's groups out there that offer fair housing for social media in particular, fair housing for marketing in particular. But I think making sure, if you're going to entrust this wonderful program in the hands of different folks that might not sit underneath you both, having them have the knowledge to make sure that they're meeting that fair housing standard is imperative. Like, and then they'll say to you, well, I took fair housing, right? But I took fair housing and then I took fair housing for social media. I learned things about the social media one that I didn't get out of the regular fair housing class.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that before, so that's very smart. Especially, you're right, as we're trying to figure out, there's always trying to a balance of like what sits at a centralized marketing level, what sits at the site team from a marketing standpoint, but making sure everyone's aligned from a process, but a law standpoint too
Right.
is important.
Like, you can do all these trendy, cool, different, fun things, but if we aren't following basic standards to meet human needs, you're not doing it right.
Sarah, we can't thank you enough. Obviously, we wish there were 20 more hours in the day because this reunion tour was just fantastic. We appreciate our listeners. Thank you to Carlos, our producer, for making us sound good. And until next time, this is the Apartment Department.